is Remembrance Day. Now, I know that in the USA, you call it, I think, Armistice Day.
Veterans Day.
Sorry, what do you call it?
Veterans Day.
Veterans Day. Fiddlesticks. Yes, I knew I'd get it wrong. But in England, we call it Remembrance Day, and it's a day where we, again, in England, we wear the poppy, and it is the day where we remember our soldiers. Now, also, I'm not sure if this is a tradition anywhere else in the world, but in my country, at the stroke of 11 a.m., 11, 11, we take a quiet moment and we take 1 minute and we take a minute of silence to remember our soldiers, to remember all of those who fought in the wars, to remember all of those who out there who are fighting even today to protect our countries and our liberty. So Chris is going to let us know when the 11 o'clock comes up on the hour. We will have a 1 minute silence if you will join me for that. But what I'd like you to do is, if you can be with me, and as we have this moment of silence, I would like to use that 1 minute of silence to send out my healing energy, my healing thoughts, and my healing prayers to all out into the world, to all soldiers, not soldiers, doesn't matter who you are. So if you are listening to this and if you would like some healing, in that healing minute, when it comes up to 11, we will spend 1 minute and that's all we need. I should be closing my eyes and I'll be sending my thoughts, my energy, and my healing prayers out to everyone. This is a hands around the world healing moment. And if you'd like to join me, please do so. I think it's important that, especially at this time in our world where so many crazy things are happening, I think it's important that we should all spend just that 1 minute of time every day. And so at 11 a.m. every single day, we who are part of the Healing Hands Around the World, we do take that 11 a.m. moment. It doesn't have to be 11 a.m. my time, please understand that. 11 a.m. anywhere in the world you are, 11 a.m. your time. And just join with me so that we can send out all of that energy. Now, this is a combined energy. And the more of us who do this, the more we combine our energy, the more we combine our prayers, the stronger and the more powerful that energy becomes and can seriously really affect the world in a really good way. And that's what we're about. So how close, Chris, can you give us a heads up on how close we are to that 11 a.m.?
We are just about 1 minute out.
So remember, this is for me about Remembrance Day. This is for me particularly to remember my father. I'll talk more about him in a little bit, and I'll talk about our relationship a little bit, his and ours. And we will be taking comments, and we will perhaps even be taking 1 or 2 questions. I know that probably you're all thinking, but she didn't warn us she was going to do this. But, you know, it came upon us. Here it is. And we should grab the moments as we see them. And thanks to Chris, who organized all of this, we are taking that particular moment. So how close are we now, Chris? Are we, give us a heads up on that 1 minute?
We have about 15 seconds.
So why don't you sit comfortably, hands palms upwards, close your eyes, and Chris, if you can tell us when that minute is up, I would be very grateful for that.
All right.
So we're giving
3, 2, 1, 11 o'clock. 11:01.
So I shouldn't be surprised, but I do have my daddy here with me, in uniform, I should say, quite rightly too. And for me, he represents all of the soldiers who fought and who thousands died. I think it reaches into the millions who have died. Those soldiers, those brave men and women who go out, who volunteer. Now, we do know that there are many reasons why people go to war. There are many reasons, often greed, often power, often it is, for the spoils of war. But all of those who were conscripted, and I'm only speaking of England right now, but I know here in America you have somewhat, or did have somewhat, the same system in place. Men and women were conscripted. You had no choice. You reached a certain age and you were hauled into the army or the navy or the air force or whatever it was. And you had no choice but to fight. And many, many, many died, not even sometimes knowing what they were fighting for. We talk about liberty, we talk about freedom, and we look at our world today, and it is so sad that we seem to have learned very little from the deaths and the devastation and the heartache and the heartbreak of all of those wars that have gone before us, because we are still fighting. We are fighting amongst ourselves. Politicians are fighting each other. The media who allow, maybe I'm prudish. Chris, I'm going to ask for your opinion in a minute on this. Maybe I'm prudish, but why do we allow things such bad language, bad behavior, disrespect? Why is the media so keen to publish all of these things for us, and we seem to be so greedy to read all of the stuff that is going on out there? It is heartbreaking. I know that it's heartbreaking for me because my father fought. He was at Dunkirk. He was one of those who was saved, otherwise I wouldn't be here. So perhaps he was just saved just for me. But amongst all of his comrades, amongst all of his men, thousands died, and it almost seems sometimes as if they died for the reasons are now blurred. Because what have we done with our freedom? What have we done with the liberty that so many men died for? I know here in the States, Chris, and maybe you'd speak to this for me, because being in England, we didn't really know very much about the Vietnam War, but the senseless dying, the senseless killing, and what was it all for? Because what do we do with the freedom that we have? Do we use it to be bullies, to be mean, to be, or do we use it? Do we not use it? Do we not use our freedom? Do we not stand up and say, no, this is not acceptable? War in any form is an aberration. War in any form should not be. Unfortunately, as long as we war with each other, as long as we war within our families, as long as we fight and argue, as long as we do all of those things, there's no hope for the world, if we can't find peace within our own selves, and if we can't find peace within our own families. I know that my brother, I have two brothers, both were in the army. My eldest brother volunteered after the war, went into the Congo. We're sort of, I suppose, we're a warrior family, really, aren't we? we're a family who believe in fighting for what we feel is the right thing, and to fight for freedom. Um, and My oldest brother has since departed this earth, but I know he's with my daddy. And my youngest brother, who is way older than I am, and I think he's something like 85 or 86 now. Until last year, he went in the Veterans Parade, wore his uniform proudly, as he should. I don't know what he's doing this year, but I want to give a shout out to him to tell you, Malcolm, my darling brother, if you are listening, I'm going to send you this anyway. I am so very proud of you and so very grateful to have you as my brother, and I do love you so very much. Chris, can you speak to war? Can you speak to your opinion of war?
Of war itself, I mean, I know it's a very idealistic view, but I'm hoping somewhere down the line soon that we can, instead of using soldiers to fight and kill and maim and hurt each other, we can use soldiers for instances like you're experiencing now down in Florida with the tropical storms, and we can use them to save people and help people, because that's what they do now in peacetime anyway. I envision some way down the line that we won't need soldiers to do what we've asked them to do. My experiences of the military is my husband is a veteran, graduate of the U.S. Air Force Academy. And my dad was in the Battle of the Bulge in Germany. And I have siblings who have served in the Navy and the Air Force, and the cousins in the Army. So I think the way Hollywood has glamorized has certainly helped. I think the terrible injustices that happened, like the bombings in New York, have garnered a whole bunch of people to get in there and fight the bad guys. Let's. I really appreciate your doing the healing moment, Rosemary, because that was very powerful, and sending healing to everybody so we don't have another war is where I would go.
Okay. I'm just sending out healing, and I'm letting the spirit world decide where it needs to go and for what reason. I try not to, when I'm saying my prayers and when I'm giving healing and when I'm giving, it's very difficult sometimes, and it's very difficult often for my students to understand. You know, if we have a patient who, for instance, has a tumor, the tendency is for us to pray for the tumor to shrink, or to pray to God, please make this person better, please do this, please do that. I am very aware that when I give healing, it is not about my will, and it is for whatever small insight I can gain into the reasons why I'm sending out my healing prayers, no matter where to and no matter when. I know that I'm in God's hands, and I always end my prayer, dear God, I will to thy will. If it is God's will to take someone, then that's what I hope my energy is used for, to take that person in a wonderful and a peaceful and a beautiful way. If it is God's will to allow someone to, sort of, let's say, have a second chance or to be cured, then I'm all for it. But I really try not to put my own wishes, my own hopes, and my own dreams into my prayers, because I think that if you have faith, it's easy for us to have faith. It's not so easy to live our faith. And I can remember when my daughter was very ill and laid in hospital, I was talking to a friend the other day about it. Her head was swathed in bandages and tubes were coming out, and it would have been so easy for me, with all that I know and all the knowledge that I have of healing and of energy. It would have been so very easy for me to sit down and try to start, sort of trying to create energy and to wish for whatever. And it is in those moments when you totally know that it's not only that you have faith, it is that you live your faith. Because the only thing I could do in that moment to honor my faith and to honor my God was to sit and hold her hand. and literally say, "Dear God, I will to thy will." And so that's really all we can do. I can see that we've got lots of comments, and remembering that it is Armistice Day, as you call it. Oh, no, you don't, do you?
Veterans Day.
Veterans Day. I'm not going to get this right, am I? And that we in England, and we in the British Isles, we out there who are Brits, we call it Remembrance Day. And I hope you all wear your poppies, and I hope you all wear them proudly, and think of all of those people, the soldiers, some who died and some who did not, but who went out there and fought for our rights and our right to have freedom. Chris, why don't we let's have some comments, shall we?
Absolutely. Karen saying how wonderful and actually brilliantly said. Chanel says, you're exactly right. Steve says, I have served in combat zones and humanitarian missions. I much preferred the humanitarian missions, yet I felt the work was important and meaningful in both cases.
Yes.
Karen said, well said for you both. Dean says, I sent out healing to the world. And Karen's thanking Steve for his service. Let's see what else. And Steve mentions, by the way, it's 11:11 on the East Coast, which is where we are too. So
that's good to know too.
Yeah. No one has a question right now, Rosemary, but
do you know
with
what?
your
I'm grateful for that, because this is about our thinking of others, thinking of all of the widows, all of the children who have no parent, thinking of the great loss that wars bring. I would like to go with you, Chris, on hoping that we never have another war, but even as we speak, there are wars going on in so many different countries, and unfortunately there are wars going on in this country. People, people trying to have peaceful protests, and then the gangs and the hooligans and the bullies coming in to disrupt and create wars amongst people, create wars amongst communities. I think, unfortunately, certainly in my country, I remember a few years ago going to. I was invited to visit the Akwesasnes in their lodge, which was a huge honor for me, because they don't usually have anyone other than their own native community. And I was invited to go and speak to them. And I know that there are many Native Americans who have this frustration and sometimes anger, quite rightly, because there were so many who tried to annihilate them. And I pointed out that in my country, I don't think there is such a thing as a true Briton. We were invaded by, and I'm not putting this in order, we were invaded by the Saxons, the Romans, the Vikings, you name it. We were invaded. I'm sure I've missed a few, but being a small island, we were often invaded. There was rape and pillage, and there was all sorts of stuff. Thank goodness I was not around in those days. But so in England, when you look at a person, when you look at a Native American, you can see they have that beautiful skin, they have those gorgeous eyes, and they have not lost. They have still survived and retained their individuality. You look at anyone from my country, we could walk anywhere in the world and nobody would say, "Oh yes, she's British," because we all have a Saxon eyes, Roman eyes, you name it. We're a mix. We're a mess. And it's so important for us to remember that you know, no matter what happens in the world and no matter what crazy things happen in the world, eventually the phoenix rises. Eventually we come out of the trauma. Eventually we survive. As human beings, we've been surviving for as long as however long we've been surviving. You know, I said this to my daughter a few weeks ago, a couple of months ago, actually. And I will say it again to you, and I think it's very appropriate for Veterans Day. I've done it again, haven't I? It is, yes. Remembrance Day, Veterans Day. I'm going to get myself into big trouble here, but I think it's very appropriate for us to understand that I do believe the world as it is now is going to get worse. I don't want to be the voice of doom and gloom. I think it's going to get worse before it gets better. But as the Chinese know, and anyone who knows about the mythical bird, the phoenix, out of the rubble, out of the ashes will rise the phoenix. The phoenix will rise again, and it will be glorious again. So for all of you out there who are having a tough time, for those of you who are remembering, maybe some of you have recently lost someone in your family in the armed forces. So it's very new to you. Please remember that eventually, out of the ashes of all of the pain and all of the hurt will rise the phoenix, often despite us, but it will rise, and you know, the air will be clear again and we will find beauty again. Chris, do we have anything else going on? Any other comments?
Bright Star says, you give me the strength to feel the power in myself that I have lost for so long. Sandy says, thank you for recognizing those who served. Albertine says, hello, Rosemary and your daddy. Wonderful. Thank you. And Roxy says, thank you, Rosemary.
Well, thank you all for joining me. Please have a very, very blessed rest of the day, everybody. I'm going to spend it with my daddy and with my brother Terry. And I'm sure they'll be poking me on. My father's poking me on the shoulder right now. And I have one thing, absolutely. I have one thing that he would like to say to all of you. Wow, my father is actually, don't think we've ever done this before, Chris. My father, on behalf of all of those fallen soldiers, on behalf of all of those soldiers long gone, the old soldiers, he says, on behalf of all of the military still serving, still standing, he says, and serving, he says he wants you to know, and I see him standing next to me, he salutes you all. That's it, Chris. Have a wonderful day, everyone.